Can you hear us, Andy?
So I'm just gonna mute him for the time being.
This one, too. This one, yeah. Which one's that? The Galoops one? Okay. Paul is out on the Galoops one.
So you a full member now? No, you're not?
It's officially voted in, but I still have to go now and swear in a second time, even though I have already sworn in.
Oh, you do?
I have to swear in again, because I swore in for,
Oh, okay,
it was like a,
good.
Is our audio working?
So when are you official then?
tomorrow when I swear.
Okay, when you get it.
I just finally got the letter. and then-
Is our audio working? 'Cause
Okay. And then when then Mark becomes associate, is that what we're doing?
Oh, it says 60 feet minimum frontage.
That'll be good.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
Well,
change
it's only
things up.
48 feet. That's why you got it highlighted.
Planning recommendations?
no, this one didn't go.
That's what do you think we're here for?
So Marissa, should we deal with that administrative matter that you
Sure.
mentioned in the email?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, I don't have any paperwork on that, but I did look at that. Has
Yeah.
everyone seen that? It seemed to me that in the context of the email that you received from that attorney,
Yeah, she wasn't an attorney, she was an architect, but
Okay.
Miss Shandell Bacall is her name.
but it looked like she was signifying her intent that it be withdrawn.
Correct.
That was the impression I got. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Everyone agree with that?
Yep.
Okay, so I'd make a motion that,
I just think Attorney Schutzer had a question.
It was brought to your attention because it just had been languishing for a couple of years. I had represented the abutter, and then there was, the abutter sold it, and I represented his successor. And the concern was, for purposes of the sale of the property, there was still this open matter that had never been closed out. So I had asked Marissa if she would administratively allow me to move this forward so the board could then take a vote. What had occurred was that the matter never resolved itself. There was the suggestion made by the architect they were going to come back with a different set of plans and a different approach to what they wanted to do, but that never occurred. So it kept on getting continued month after month after month. Administratively, it would be continued. And then it stopped being continued, and then time went on, and I just was asking for closure.
Ken, do you have an issue with it? Because I think we could just probably vote on it and
Yeah,
move
that's
on.
fine, I just
Okay.
wanted to give some context.
Yep,
to how
yep, we got it. All right.
okay, all right.
Well, that's another issue.
Yes, I make a motion that that petition be deemed withdrawn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to our first item on the agenda, which is, the second item on the agenda, actually, which is petition number 22-23 by Gregory McDonald, care of Ken Schutzer, seeking a dimensional special permit and a special permit for a non-conforming use and/or structures for construction of an addition connecting the principal dwelling with the carriage house at 135 Galloups Point Road.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Schutzer.
For the record,
Thank you very much. For the record, Attorney Ken Schutzer, I'm here with Gregory and Nora McDonald, the owners of 135 Galloups Point Road. Now, in your package, I provided both the application, which you've had an opportunity to take a look at, as well as the renderings and the site plan. The renderings and the architectural plans were prepared by Bridget Fortin, who is sitting next to me, to my right, to your left, who will be presenting information with regard to the architectural design that we wish to incorporate. I just sort of wanted to step back just a little bit and give you a little bit of history as to this property. If you take a look, if we can go to the site plan, it'll give you a much better perspective. It's probably somewhere at the end.
Maybe a different document.
We're getting there. Oh, for the site plan. No, the site,
Might be a different document.
I think it's a different document,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Hold on 1 second. I think it's this one.
nope, no, that's the assessors plan. There's a site plan that was prepared by Gail Smith.
There we go.
There it is, okay. And possibly if you can blow it, well, either that'll put my glasses on so I can see it. Okay. What you see there is a rather large structure called the carriage house. And above the carriage house, there is a smaller residence, which was a caretaker's house. And these were built probably prior to 1920. And there was another structure, actually where Ellis Goldsmith's house is now, which was the main estate. And these two buildings serviced that. That's why you see a garage that could accommodate probably 10 cars, and a very small caretaker's house. The caretaker obviously was there to assist in the needs of the larger house that was on, I think it's 55 Galloups Point Road, or is that the right number, 55? 55.
What was it, 55, the main house?
Yes, but that house was torn down, I believe, around 1980-something, 89? 87. And, but what was left was the carriage house and the caretaker's house. The caretaker's house is a rather small house. It was never really designed to do anything other than to supplement the main house. And what we're asking to do is to be able to utilize the carriage house as part of the residence by incorporating the addition, which would then allow them to use the carriage house. Now, obviously, nobody has 10 cars, and there's really no need for it. And arguably, one could make the statement that by reducing the number of the size of the garage, you'll make it less non-conforming, because there's a maximum number that you could use it for today, which would be 3. But it could be considered to be a pre-existing non-conforming 10-car garage, but what they're trying to do is use that. So the purpose this evening is to put this proposed addition, which is the relief we're seeking. The lot itself is a conforming lot. It has adequate frontage. It has adequate size. It's over 30,000 square feet. But because of the carriage house being too close to the side and rear lot, we need the approval of the board for the relief that we're currently seeking. At this point, I'd like to be able to have you see some of the architectural drawings that we have submitted, as well as some photographs, which will give you some additional perspective.
Sure.
Thank you. So that's an assessor's plan. That's and that shows you the lot, and it shows you the abutting lots, and then take it from here.
Yes, so on that first image, you can see that little blue dot was the addition that we're looking for. Basically, you get the existing house on the left, the carriage house on the right. We were looking to add to a kitchen, and maybe you can go to the floor plan to understand a little bit better what's going on. So keep going. So this is existing first floor of the house on the left, and then the carriage house right now is a wood shop on that, the big triangular piece is a wood shop. So not really finished inside, and then you get garage space after that. So we were looking to add to the kitchen. The kitchen is pretty awkward in the house. So we had two options. One was going toward the side property line, and that would bring us pretty close to the setback, or going between the house and the carriage house, and that's the option that we're proposing here. It's the one that is less visible from anybody. Nobody can see it, basically. So if you can keep going to the second floor. So this is the existing second floor. There's nothing on the second floor of the carriage house. And the third floor, so keep going. So existing elevation. So the things happening here. So that's the existing that you see the most. If you keep going to the proposed after that. Okay, so this one here. So this is showing where that new kitchen is going to be. We're moving the front entry so it's more visible from the driveway area, and then creating a new entryway. The old living room will become a dining room, and the kitchen is going to be this enlarged space between the two. And now we're moving the living room in the wood shop in the carriage house. On the second floor, we're going to have a roof deck that link the two. Nothing else is happening on the third floor. Just the build sessions, keep going. So this is looking at it from the rear neighbor, so the connector between the two. Nobody's really seeing this elevation. And nothing happening on that back wall. And this is the main elevation where we're going to get a new, more visible entrance and adding a bay window on the carriage house for that family room. That's where all the sun's coming from. And keep going. I think it's
Last one.
okay. So that is pretty much it. You can look at the photos that we had before. Maybe that will. So this is that front entryway that's going to move just at a 45-degree angle to enter the new house. Not much is changing from there. That will be just as is. No work. This is showing in the back. There's a lot of ledge, so we could not go backwards either. The back is, can't add to that on the first floor. And this is that back elevation that nobody can see. There's an existing deck there that's going to be enlarged a little bit. And that is that main entrance where you come in the driveway, you will see the new entryway in diagonal. But the rest is going to stay as is. You'll have the big window is going to be visible on the right side of that blue door. But that's about it for the changes. That's it.
Now, we went and spoke with the neighbors, and I also provided, maybe we can show that as well. There's a visual of a GIS map, and I took the liberty of, there it is, and we have the signatures of all of the abutters. The one that I didn't have, and she's here this evening, is Alice Goldsmith, and that would be lot number 2621 and 2623. It's a double lot, and that was the one that wasn't colored in yellow. So, to the best of our knowledge, all of our abutters are favorably predisposed, and Ms. Goldsmith is here. She can speak for herself, but the others wanted to indicate by the petition that they were in favor of this.
The areas shaded in yellow, they signify those that who are in favor?
Right. What I did is I took the list of all the individuals, and then I matched them up with their lots, except for the one, and Ms. Goldsmith is here, and that was the one that was missing. The other thing I learned, and I wasn't aware of this, is back in 2000, I may have actually been on the board at the time, I don't even remember this, but there was the prior owner had proposed the same thing, the board approved it, and then it was never built. And that was in 2000, I'm told. And there was a model of that particular approach of combining the two, and it's still it's still in Mr. McDonald's home, which was what was originally apparently submitted back in 2000, but it was never built. So that is our proposal, and if there are any other questions, the only thing I did bring, I don't know if it's any value, I brought some plans. One, and I can provide them. May I approach?
Yes.
Okay. There are two sets of plans, I only made 3 copies, I didn't realize it was going to be here. This was the subdivision plan, the first one, that was just recently done. The Talkowski property is next door, and the one underneath it was the original 1920 plan, which is referenced in the 1987 subdivision plan. And those are the only 2 plans of record I could find. But that shows that house in its current configuration was there since the 1920s. I must confess, I don't think I've ever run into a situation where the accessory structure was larger than the principal residence. But in this particular case, due to the sort of historical anomaly of what this property represents, is when it was carved up, what was left on this lot was this rather large carriage house, a rather small caretaker's house, and the main house itself is no longer there. So what we're trying to do is utilize the carriage house as part of the primary structure.
So the carriage house is shown on the 1925 plan?
Yes, it is. You can't see it on that, it just goes further, but when I referenced, if you look at the 1987 subdivision plan, it references on the right-hand side, under reference, it says Plan Book 48, Plan 3, and that's the other plan that I gave you. So I would only instinctively suggest to you that probably, if there's more to that plan, it references those structures as well. They're just not showing, but it is, when they created the subdivision plan in 87, they were referencing the 1925 plan.
So what is in the carriage house now? Is it, I think there's 3 garage doors, are those garages? And then what's to the right of those garage doors?
There's apparently 4 garage doors, and then they're utilizing some of that space, which I think was earlier permitted for like a,
It's like a,
what do you
like
call
a
it?
little family room, like
Storage area and stuff.
Gym equipment.
gym, yeah.
We had a petition last month that involved joining a principal dwelling to the garage under different circumstances,
Right.
certainly different from this, but it was an oversized garage, and there was, and the distance between the two was non-conforming. It wasn't, it was only like 5 feet or something. So they would join, but the board had concerns about the garage, being in the future considered part of the main dwelling, so that our approval, we condition that on, that the garage not be deemed still, even though it was being physically joined to the principal dwelling, would be deemed to still be an accessory building and would not be habitable in the future.
Well, at the moment...
What would you say about that if we made a similar condition
Well,
here?
what we're trying to do is we're trying to be able to utilize that space. And obviously, unless your last name is Jay Leno and you have 10 cars, it really serves no purpose. I don't have any expectation that they're going to utilize the entire area for residential area.
I mean, I don't even know if I have a problem with that. I just,
it's an
It is
interesting
different from what
question.
we had before.
When I said to you, candidly, I've never seen, the accessory structure being 3 times the size of the principal residence.
Right.
It's, obviously, it's being wasted. And to be made part, or a portion of it to be made part of the house, to reserve the remainder for the garage, made perfect sense. The only way that they could accommodate that would be some way to get from the principal residence to the accessory structure. They needed a way to get there, rather than walking outside and sort of living in their garage. This made and then they could also build out the kitchen, and then the whole area would look more consistent. Because right now, all you see is this enormous garage and a small house.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense to join them, I think.
And actually, it looks very nice. I mean, from an aesthetic perspective, and I suspect to some degree that's why most of the neighbors were in favor of it. They thought it looked good, it made sense.
We're not
And
seeing, quick question about the plans. We're missing what's beyond just the first 2 bays, right? That's on the plans, but then there's that whole L area with the other door. Now, is that residential space currently?
So you can see all the garage door there, and at the end there is one big room. It's like a storage room. I have a photo of it if you want to see it.
They've been using it for storage and gym equipment and things like that.
But that's not on, but there's no place where that's on the plans.
Is that shown?
Your concern with the other one was, once you add the garage, have you triggered a site plan review? Because now you're making an addition bigger than...
No, the addition is only 440 square feet.
No, we understand that,
Okay.
but this was the concern on the previous one, was once you add the accessory structure to the principal structure, are you creating a bigger addition then? Right, that was your concern? We kind of
Yeah, that
said-
was one of my concerns, and plus it created additional nonconformities where the house didn't have nonconformities on the side yard and the back, it created that because the garage did have,
Right,
was
that's-
too
this
close.
does the same thing as
Yeah,
well.
this is
Yeah.
kind of the same thing.
I mean, I'm okay with
Yeah.
just counting the new building as the square footage of the addition as opposed to what's also added on, but I understood that
Right,
concern
yeah.
on the other
My-
one.
my
Yeah, I don't think
interpret-
that this necessarily requires the same approach as we did before. This is different, it's definitely different, too.
That's what I was told.
Whereas the other one was clearly a garage, and this is,
So Heather, you're saying that the room to the right of the garage presently is not part of the primary structure, and that as a result of what they're intending to do here, that space is also being added to the primary living structure?
Yeah,
So
and
you're-
not just that part, right, that we don't have on our plans, but also that entire part that was a workshop.
So that in essence, it would be an addition of greater than, how many square feet is that?
No, what we're doing is, my interpretation, and if I can just speak up, my interpretation was adding additional square footage that doesn't currently exist. The carriage house currently exists. The use of that carriage house may change, but that's not the trigger. The trigger is new, and it would be, in this case, 800 square feet of new residential area. But the word "new" is in the word of creating a greater coverage. This exists. The only thing that we're adding physically is the area between the two structures. That's the 440 square feet that we're talking about. The use will change. It's currently an accessory structure as a garage. This garage is being used as a garage, and it's also being used for storage. What we're trying to do is incorporate it and make it part of the house, because it's just too big and it's unusable. It's a vestige of the past where there was one large garage that accommodated many cars for the Galloups Point mansion that was there at the time. So I never, and I'm looking at the bylaw under site plan, and it doesn't reference changing use, and therefore by creating, it talks about actually adding on.
yeah, and I think the concern on the other one, too, was of whether or not the homeowner would, at a later date, be able to put a second floor in that garage and put living space in there. That was really the concern.
Well, at this point,
If it was deemed an accessory structure, you wouldn't be able to do that, without a variance. But when it was connected, that was the concern. If it was considered part of the principal dwelling by virtue of it being connected, then that was a concern. And that was one of the reasons for that condition.
So would you condition the relief that added space can't be used as?
That's what I'm wondering, is that appropriate, given these facts?
I'm still curious, how many square feet, because if it's less than 400 square feet,
You mean that whole
then
carriage
the whole
house?
thing's under 800, right?
No, I think the carriage house,
Well, it's not the entire carriage house, right? Isn't it just that L room that they're using for gym equipment? Is that right?
Yeah, in the back. It's symmetrical to this. The wood shop is the same space on the other side.
It's not on any of the drawings. Just we're missing a section of the structure on all these drawings.
Yeah, it's exactly symmetrical. I just didn't think that would be an issue.
I don't know what that is over there on the right, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Heather.
it talks about either changing or altering the footprint of a residence that previously required site plan. We're not, as far as I can tell, we're not altering the footprint of any of the pre-existing carriage house. We're changing a use, and if in fact the condition was that the use be for specific purpose only, that would not be an issue with us, because that's actually what we're looking to do. And in essence, by doing that, we're making this clearly non-conforming use, because it's clearly a pre-existing non-conforming use to have a garage that could accommodate 10 cars, where today the maximum is 3, to lessening the number of cars, which would therefore make it more conforming. because there's no maximum amount of rooms one can have in a residence, but there clearly is a maximum number of garage bays that you can have in a garage. So we're making it less non-conforming by using it for residential purposes. And we're only adding 440 square feet, which would allow them to obviously access it from the primary residence.
Is there anyone anyone else present who wishes to be heard in support?
I mentioned Ms. Alice Goldsmith is here, but
yeah, sure.
if she wishes to speak, I don't know, but she said I could mention that she was here in
Sure.
favor.
Where is she?
I'm right here.
Oh, yes, hi.
The only reason that I think that my little square wasn't colored in yellow is that is an unbuildable lot, so I don't think people kind of realized that it was separate. So, at any rate, I think this is a great project for the Point. I've lived on the Point for over 30 years. There's a lot that has gone on, construction-wise. Some of it's better than others. And I think this is a great project. The carriage house has always been kind of an eyesore, and joining it to the main structure and, you know, allowing the McDonald's to enlarge their home and use it more effectively, I think is a positive.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anyone in opposition to this project? Anyone on Zoom, Marissa?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak up,
Yeah, either for or against?
you may use the raise your hand function.
Hey, Don, Dan, sorry, Dan?
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I just think just to not find ourselves in a situation down the road, that we should just put that caveat that they can only expand the residential habitable use to the first wing of when the garages start. So we just, you know, even though it's not the same as the last month's hearing, we can at least just be consistent so we don't get caught somewhere else. And it doesn't really affect the petition. It's like, yes, here's the relief, but, you know, you can't expand the habitability any farther than this amount.
Okay, I'm not hearing Andy entirely clearly, but I think he's suggesting that we do
He's saying-
something that's the same thing.
Yeah,
we
he
did,
just
you know.
said to condition it so that and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, that everything on the other side of the garage essentially is to not
From the
be,
garages, but from the garages and down is still under the accessory use umbrella, so to speak. And can't, you know, they can't just keep on bracket creeping their way through the garages to expand the house without coming back to us.
is that all right?
There's this much
I
here.
Right.
All of this here, she says mirrored, so all of this exists
Right.
here.
So they've got the three garages and
Three
then
garages,
that
and
other
then-
structure that's similar to this.
Similar to
That
all
they say
this.
they've got storage space in there, but it's all connected.
Because it's like a flip.
They're conceptually fine with that. My question is, what can that now be used for? Is there a limitation in what one can use a garage for? You know, I don't know that there's a prohibition about living in one's garage, not that they have any intention of doing that, but it just so this won't be another portion of an orphaned piece of this without a definition of what it can be used for. Clearly, they don't want to find themselves in conflict with the decision, but at the same time, obviously, they have no intention of parking in it, but I don't want it not to be able to be utilized and just stay there without a use that's been defined. So if we can sort of expand on what the thinking is, and I understand what the board's position is, but we've now created this isolated portion on the right-hand side, which is still a part of the carriage house. Now, carriage houses can be lived in, that there's no prohibition about using it as a residence, but it can't be used as a second residence. I mean, obviously, we have prohibitions about having two principal residences on a single lot, so we can't do that. It's clearly zoned A1, which means that it can only be a single-family home. But I don't know whether what we're prepared to do is limit its use by saying that at some future point, somebody couldn't live there, unless there's some reason we don't want to be able to utilize that portion of the house at all, or the garage at all, because it's not being used for parking. And since it's not being used for parking, can't be used for parking, we
It's
sort of
not used
create...
for it's not going to be used for parking at all?
At the end.
It's finished.
It's finished.
You mean the end?
The end, yeah, that's the part, that's the part that
What
we're
is it
talking.
now? It's finished space?
It's just, it's kind of
So is it like
empty.
a bedroom or a
It's-
accessory?
It's just a gym equipment and stuff like that. And I just didn't know by putting in this condition whether we have created a violation before we get started. And I'm just trying to avoid that. And I just think if we would leave it alone and put in language, and I see this done in Marblehead all the time, that if there's any further change to the structure, that you need to come back before the board for further relief. That, I think, would make sense, because that would not in any way hamstring its use, but if there was any change in the exterior, then clearly it would. But I don't think there's a use regulation that we wish to tie into this. Yeah,
Yeah, Randy?
is this Andy's? It's like the Wizard of Oz here.
I'm trying, I'm like struggling with my phone, but if you can hear me?
I can hear you fine, Andy. Yep.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I say everything that you said to you in reverse. Whatever you can use as an accessory structure for, you can use it, you haven't lost that. But we're essentially taking an accessory structure and we're permitting you to have a portion of your accessory structure act like the main structure. But that's it. And if you could, under the accessory structure, do something, in other words, right now, if you could do it now, then you can do it then, but you can't do any more than that. Instead of asking us to tell you what you can do, you know, and define that.
I was asking,
define-
okay, I'm sorry. I was asking that you take no action whatsoever in trying to define use at all. The only restriction would be that if there was any expansion of the structure beyond that which is permitted, then we would have to come back before the Board of Appeals.
You have to anyway, because now you've got now you've got a primary structure that's, you know. right
I understand that. I just want to make it
So I
clear.
think we're trying to clearly say that we're not ever permitting you to have this act as primary structure, the entire thing. We're bifurcating it and saying, okay, this piece can act as primary structure, but everything else is still an accessory structure with whatever rights it has or doesn't have.
Okay, I'll tell you,
It's gotta come back.
okay, I think the one issue I take with that is that when you combine an accessory structure with a primary structure, it's now one structure. An accessory structure, by the very nature, or by the very definition of an accessory structure, is separate from the primary structure. In other words, if you have a house that has a garage that's connected to it, it's not an accessory structure. Accessory structure, by definition, is a structure that is separate from, and theoretically has to be 10 feet from, the primary structure. The minute you combine them, you now have a single structure.
We're talking about accessory use.
That's exactly our concern.
Right.
That's why, on the other one we did, we, you know, just magically said, we're gonna deem that still, even though we're connecting it up to the main structure, we're telling you that it's still gonna be deemed an accessory structure for all zoning purposes.
I see what you're saying now. I didn't understand the distinction, but let me ask you this. What would be the reservation?
And it just created like that legal fiction.
You're right. No, I didn't get the nuance until just that second, but what would be the reticence of the board to grant it without there being this, I don't know what happened on the other matter, so I don't have any history.
The concern is that now you have a primary structure that's too close to the property line. Whereas before, you just had an accessory.
Well, you could,
structure that-
that's true, but you can now, you can
And then you
grant,
could put, maybe you could come in and maybe want to put a second story on it, if you wanted to, if it was connected up to the main dwelling.
no, but I'm saying if you want to change the exterior of that structure, that was what I was recommending as a condition. By going up a second story or doing anything to that structure from the exterior, you would require further relief from the board. I'm just saying that I'm sorry, Andy.
We already defined it, we already did this last month. So I think to stay consistent, so we don't get trapped somewhere down the road, we should just continue to say, okay, if we're letting you attach, it's bifurcated, this is part of the structure, this is still, for all intents and purposes, has accessory structures, so that you can't come and even think about putting a second story on. And, because we haven't thought through whether, you can't, et cetera, and what's involved. I just only open this can of worms up to say, I think it doesn't affect these people. We're happy to go forward. We think it's a good project. But we're trying to shoehorn them into, we'll give you what you want, and we want to make sure that what you're asked for is what you want. There was nothing, there's no greater ask that we've kind of then permitted ourselves as a right into.
Well, I'm not aware of any greater ask, number one, and number two, and that's
What is the
fine.
problem with that, Ken, that it continues to, we allow you to connect it up, and you can use the connecting portion
Everything you asked for.
for what you want, and but that the rest of it is still considered an accessory structure.
So it's not changing anything.
Well, is there any portion?
Not all considered as the primary dwelling, it's still considered accessory. And then any other relief that you may want in the future, you'd still have to come back.
I'm not sure we're looking for any additional relief. I'm just, this fiction of accessory structure just has me confounded, and I've never thought of a structure that is one, a portion of that is now referred to as accessory. I
Right,
think the
because
limit.
it's separate now, and you're.
Oh, it is, but once it's combined, if the board were predisposed to allow that, I
So
don't.
it's physically going to become one, but conceptually, it's going to remain, it's going to be considered to be deemed an accessory structure, as that is defined in the bylaw.
What's he saying?
We're giving you what you want, but we're not, we're acknowledging that we're not letting you, it's an accessory structure. We're not, I don't know that we'd say, look, you want to make this a whole house.
All right, okay.
You're off to the races. We agree to that.
Hey, can I address the board for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Sure. Go ahead.
This is where it's gonna get very confusing, because as a building official, an accessory structure is accessory to the building. So in the future, we gotta really think this through, because whether it's 10, 12 years down the road, someone's gonna come in, we're gonna look at this and say, oh yeah, it's one structure, go ahead, finish it off. A lot of people aren't really necessarily, I know because I'm sitting at the meeting, but they're not going to go pull the whole file and look at the ZBA, the past ZBA stuff. So by calling a connected structure an accessory structure, I think it's going to really cloud up the judgment of myself or future inspectors down the road. I think we really got to think that through.
If we can just have as a provision, if the board is favorably predisposed, that any further change in the exterior of that structure, of any kind, requires further relief from the board, I think that will meet the criteria of the board's concern about our ability to do anything without first submitting an application for the board. Because I could intuit from listening to some of the comments that there were concerns that things could be done to circumvent the intent of the decision. Clearly, that's not the case. In language in the decision to the effect that any further change, physical change, in the exterior of that structure of any kind would require further zoning relief, I think meets that concern. But I'm not sitting as a board member. I'm sitting as the applicant's voice.
Is there plumbing in that part?
I'm sure there is. Isn't there plumbing in there?
Finished?
Yeah, yeah, there's plumbing in there.
To his point, something that you all probably know this already, but to hypothetically make that an accessory use and accessory dwelling unit, a second means of egress would have to be added, and that would constitute an exterior modification to the structure because it would be the addition of a second door. So that would warrant the petitioner coming back before the board.
So if that's the case, then obviously we'd never be able to get a building permit to do anything without having to come before the board. So that would be another safeguard and assurance that nothing could be done other than what's being currently proposed. Thank you very much, Marissa.
Don't mean to play devil advocate. And hopefully we'll have a bylaw in the near future that will
There's enough bylaws already.
solve all of this.
A unique situation here. Any discussion among the board before we
I mean, I'm
close the public hearing?
comfortable. The thing that is, we keep getting these things with the Malta case where all of a sudden, well, it's right on the, where you're extending the nonconformity by putting a second story, but you're not getting any closer to the border, so now that this is a pre-existing older building.
I think it loses
Now that
its...
we add it to the primary structure,
Yeah.
and then someone says, okay, I want to add a second story to it, and we're saying, well, are they increasing the nonconformity? Well, they're not getting any closer. So I think we do have to put something on there that says that whether we say its use is an accessory structure when that other portion's already a fully finished room doesn't make any sense. But if it's something that says more to the effect of you have to.
I mean, I'm comfortable with calling it an accessory structure.
I understand.
I mean, I understand the concerns of Steve, but...
Steve's concerns.
But, it's incumbent on
The
anyone to look at the file.
And the other one was very different in the sense
All
that
semantics,
it was
yeah.
really a breezeway connecting.
Right, that's
It was just
true.
a roof.
Yeah.
I mean, they're using a large portion of this accessory structure as primary structure.
Right.
And so it's very different than that other case where it was
It
literally
is,
just a
yeah.
breezeway kind of to connect it to avoid that 10-foot.
Right.
I
No,
mean,
it is
this-
different.
What's happening here that is the problem for us is we're taking a primary structure and we're putting it right on the property line, which met its setbacks before this connection. Now all of a sudden the primary structure doesn't.
Back in 1920,
Decide if we're okay with
unfortunately, nobody could think this through. It's there now. It'll be used properly. Obviously, the neighbors think it's the best use of the property. In order to increase the living space, without doing that, would be increasing the caretaker's house and making it bigger. We're trying not to do that. We're just trying to use what we have now, use that space wisely, and do it in a way that does not create this fiction of an accessory structure when it's actually it's only a single structure now. And it's clearly not, when you combine something, it's clearly not a construction. You're not, I was just reading over the site plan. It says construction, exterior, or alteration. Well, we're not altering that portion at all. That stays the same. That building is not, what we're
We
doing.
understand that, Ken, that's not the concern, really.
Okay. But that's,
So that's not helpful.
okay. I'm doing whatever I can to try to convince the board that I'd rather stay away from this fiction of an accessory
Bob.
structure.
I can't vote on this one, but I think we are making a nightmare for the building inspectors if we're calling it an exit. I just think
Okay.
it's just going to confuse everybody. We're either saying yes or no, and then...
Well, it's not like there's a lot of properties in town like
No,
this.
This is really an anomaly.
It's so
There-
unique, it's already
It's a
there.
very
I don't-
smart project. I mean, it
I'm not
makes
allowed to
sense.
vote.
Makes total sense to do it, yes. Yeah, we're in favor of doing it. We're gonna give you the relief. We're just trying to figure out how to do it.
I mean, I would just say, I mean, I agree, I'm gonna agree with Ken and say,
Every once in a while, it's okay. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's okay.
and say that you can condition it on, any change to that. I mean, I would think that you could deny any change to that building, that goes up on the property line that close.
I'd agree with that.
Just condition it that,
So just condition it on,
Any change.
and any change would have to come back before the.
and any change would, because now all of a sudden we have a primary structure right on the property line. They can't do anything without coming before us.
Right.
I just
All right.
wouldn't want them to get caught up in the,
I also think the
in that
neighbours would be really
pre-existing-
mad if suddenly it was going up higher, so I think we'd have, it would come back to us.
yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion and,
Can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
Is your concern that they're going to take the garage space and convert that to living space? Is there something that you want to put in there about a condition of any change to the use of this as a, the portion of this that's used as a garage would also require review and a special
yeah,
permit?
I was just thinking what we did in the other one, we actually had a condition, not only that it be deemed, the garage still be deemed accessory, but also that it not be habitable,
Right.
that the garage not be habitable. This,
Well, this garage is so large as it is, the problem is, we don't need the space for garage anymore.
but this, I don't know if it makes sense to say, to put a condition
And
on
it-
that it
and
not
it
be
actually makes
habitable, because it's bigger than it's almost
Right.
It's
bigger than
twice
the
as,
main
it's
structure.
3 times bigger than the house.
And it will waste the
For
space
garage
then.
bays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that makes sense either, to
Yeah.
just say it can't be habitable.
Well, I
right?
think,
'Cause it's
was
so
it
big.
to Marissa's point, if you made that habitable, you would have to have a second means of egress? Or are you talking about the garage bays?
I'm looking at all as just one
Both, yeah.
structure.
I was talking specifically about the garage bays, but I know people are concerned about the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the whole thing.
Yeah. If the concern is that they're gonna close off the garage.
Because they can just go in there and
The
gut the
portion
whole
that's the
thing and
gym,
turn it
you
into,
can't access
right?
the
They can go
garage.
in there and just take those garage
it
doors out and
Yeah.
make a house out of it, right? Just as tall as the other one.
Yeah. So that's.
So do we
where-
want to allow them to do that?
We don't have the plans for that, but
Because they'll have the ability to
Oh,
do
we do have
that
to put in.
if we allow them to connect it up and say it's all part of the primary structure.
Well, I wouldn't want to foreclose their opportunity to come before the board and seek that.
Right.
So maybe what we do now is we limit it to the relief they're looking for, and we condition it on any further changes would be subject to, a further special permit or
you can even say any further changes of use or
structure.
structure.
Yeah, use or structure.
That's fine.
Okay,
All right.
all right. All right, good.
You want to make the motion?
Yeah. I make a motion to close the public hearing, first of all.
Second.
All right, all in favor? The board will be the regular board, plus Heather. Anyone want to make a motion? I'm sure Ken will provide a draft decision for us.
It would be my pleasure.
All right. I'll make a motion then.
What do you need?
Can I just see the petition again? Oh, yeah. I'll make a motion that the board approve petition 2223 by Gregory McDonald for a dimensional special permit for non-conforming use in structures for the construction of an addition connecting the principal dwelling with the carriage house at 135 Blues Point Road. The relief to be conditioned upon any change in either the structure or use to be subject to further special permit relief by the board. Anything else? Did you cover it?
Okay.
Have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
You need
You in favor, Andy?
If I can talk. You just lied the microphone, I have to recuse myself from the next one and chase back, but yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks, Ken. Okay, next, petition 2224 by Chase Bank.
Heather, if you want to agree with me another time, it's still okay.
I'll write it on the calendar.
Requesting a sign special permit for the installation of a freestanding business sign at the entrance to the property at 970 Paradise Road.
Thank you. May I get the chair for you? Sure.
Very good. Ken. You can hang around, Ken.
Hi.
Okay, hello.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah.
For the record, my name is Heather Dudko, 27 Old Meeting House Road in Auburn, Mass. And I work with Philadelphia Sign, who's the sign installer for Chase.
Okay.
So the petition before the board is to install a freestanding sign. As you may know, this is a new branch being built on Paradise Road. And for the installation of a ground sign, we need to seek a special permit. So they are requesting a 58 square foot freestanding sign, 17-foot overall height, 23-foot setback, and it would be internally illuminated. The Uno sign, I believe, on the lower left corner was the sign that was on the property before, with the sites being all reworked. It's a fully operational branch, open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, Saturday, 9 to 1, and they will have a 24-hour lobby, ATM access, and a 24-hour drive-up ATM. And I did print out, if I can approach the board, this is just a rendering of how the sign will look at night. It's not fully lit, but the background is aluminum and the letters are lit in the sign. The side of the sign would be illuminated, so it's not a fully face-lit sign. I think we did have a installation drawing that showed the,
Looks pretty straightforward.
those are just some signs in the area. The site sketch shows the setback on Paradise Road. It'll be on like a little bit of an island with some landscaping. And that's on the right, the rendering of the sign. We have permitted the wall signage already by right. There'll be 3 sets of channel letters on the building.
So the sign is going to be located where exactly on the property?
So it's on Paradise Road.
Maybe put up that...
Sure.
This one.
The next,
The site sketch?
They got like a site sketch there, yeah.
Yeah, there.
Is that, oh, right
Yep,
there?
right
That's
there,
it?
yep.
Okay.
Zoom in.
so you can kind of see it where it says,
Yeah, I
Yep,
see.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
and that's really about it.
So where's the sign?
The big red
The little
thing.
black rectangle in the,
Yep.
that red line is
Correct, right there.
pointing to.
Yep, right there.
In the middle.
And the driveway is to the right of that,
Correct.
24 feet?
So the sign will be 23-foot setback, located on that little landscaped island.
Oh, yeah, I see.
So there's no visual obstruction for cars entering or exiting?
No.
Because that's one of the most dangerous crossings and exits and enterings of parking in the town. So that's important. How high was the Uno sign?
I do not know. I don't know.
This sign is 17 feet?
Correct.
Do you know
You know
how?
where the Uno sign was? I'm sorry.
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to know, 17 feet in the abstract is one thing, but
Yeah.
how does it relate? I know you gave us photos of some of the other signs.
I'm not,
Do you know what all those are?
honestly, I'm not quite sure. Let me see if I could just kind of visualize this here.
The photo's hard to,
Yeah.
You know where the Uno sign was in relation to where
17 feet
the
seems.
sign is going to be?
I think it's on the opposite side. The Uno sign. So see how there's another little landscaped area to the right?
Right.
It appears that it was on that side. Oh, no, actually, no. I can see it in the background. No, it looks like it was on the other side, I'm sorry. So I would think maybe 5, 10. Letters are probably 3 or 4, 8, 12. I would think about 8, maybe 18 feet, the Uno sign.
And this one is
17.
17.
I just don't think I have any notes about the,
I mean, it struck me when I saw the measurements as being very, very tall.
the 17-foot.
Yeah, yeah, and I just, there are other businesses there, obviously, and I don't want to, overwhelm the optics as you're, in that area. Does it need to be that tall? I mean, is that?
No, I would think that they could lower it. I mean, especially if there's concerns about congestion and the traffic, of course. I just drove down there. It's very, very busy down there.
Yeah.
It's very busy.
It might be the builder.
I don't know what others think in terms of the,
How tall is it?
just feels 17 feet. And it's illuminated on both sides.
Correct. And unfortunately, since it's, they're doing construction there, they weren't able to get a real good picture to superimpose. Since that,
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
You have a sign to the left of it, which is the Citizens Bank, and the sign that you showed us, the alien sign is not. Citizen changed the sign to a vertical blade sign like this, and then to the right of it, you have the Five Guys pylon sign. Why don't you just say that the height should be no greater than the tallest one, and the median between the average of the three of them. So the three of them are kind of all equal. So they're all proportionate to each other, as opposed to you have like wild weed growing up between the ones on the left and the
Yeah,
right.
I think that's a great,
That's a good suggestion.
I mean, 17 feet doesn't strike me as exceedingly high, but so if they're 15 feet, then everybody's 15 feet, and it's no harm, no foul. Everybody's kind of got the same sign, but we look a little more orderly.
They were all scratching their head together.
I like that idea.
I like that idea, too. So we can't exceed the median of the other two signs? Is that what we're saying? An average of those other two signs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what he's saying?
So whatever the average is of those other two signs would
Can't
be the
exceed that,
maximum
Can't
height of
exceed
this.
that. That's fine. Yeah.
17.
Because they'll all be pretty close.
And no event shall be higher than 17 feet.
What if they're all 25?
But if they are, that's the
Well, no
way
more
it
than
is, and
17.
that's the
Right.
way
Yeah.
it's fine.
And we'll be
I
lower
mean,
than that
I don't think the
anyway.
existing signs are offensively high.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
There's
an
actually
issue, so.
Citizens, the old Uno, then there's the Five Guys.
So it's the Five Guys and the Citizens, because the Unos is gone.
Right.
Take those two,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you guys are the middle one.
And the Five Guys is right next door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. One's on
Okay.
the right, one's on the left.
I'm sure they would have no problem with that.
Where is the, just curious, the sight line on the Citizens and the Five Guys? Are they also set back around that same distance, 23 feet? Do you know?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
Five
know.
Guys is right.
Did you have a picture there?
They look like that.
Because I like that idea that Andy has is, just so that no one, it doesn't stick out, it's
Right.
not, and there's some uniformity there. Yeah, it looks like Citizens is further in.
It looks like the Citizens is further in, but it looks like
I
the
think
Five Guys
is right on
That
the,
Citizen sign is
less
not
than
the sign.
23
It's in the
feet.
same spot, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think also we just don't want, if this sign did grow, we don't want it to grow proportionally, because that font would be huge.
Five Guys one's pretty close to the road.
yeah, the Five Guys one's almost on the road.
Yeah, okay.
Like right on the road, the Five Guys.
But is that one on a post more?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's on like thin posts, so you
That's a
can
double,
see, whereas
right.
this is a 3-foot wide,
Right.
Blade.
blade, yeah.
So 23 feet should be enough, right?
All the way top to bottom, Five Guys is just a 3-panel sign. With a
Exactly.
lot of air underneath it.
Right.
So I would say you wouldn't want it to get any bigger than the 3 feet that is, or 3 feet 4 inches that is, it is.
Right.
If it,
So no wider than that, no wider than 3
Well, it
feet.
wouldn't be wider than that.
yeah.
And remind me, is that lot, I know with Citizens, you can pull in and cut through to the rest of that Vinnen Plaza there, Swampscott Plaza, sorry.
Small mall.
Small things. Sorry, I knew I'd get corrected there. What is,
Cross easements between the Five Guys. It's not connected to
It's
the
not connected.
Citizens, but it's cross easement with the Five Guys at Dunkin' Donuts.
oh, that's right, okay. Well, that's all right, but it doesn't connect into the mall parking lot, right? It's separate? Yeah,
Or the Citizens Bank.
got it, okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, anyone else wish to be heard, either for or against this petition? Anyone out there, Marissa?
Anyone here joining us on Zoom, you may use the raise your hand function if you'd like to speak on behalf of this petition. I think we're okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any further discussion? Are we good? All right, anyone want to make a motion?
I will. Can you throw that back up, the motion? I think I have it here, actually. Just want to get the 3.2. So I'll make a motion to approve petition 2224 for a special permit pursuant to bylaw section 3.2. And we are going to condition it on the height of that sign shall not exceed the median height of the currently existing signs on either of the directly abutting properties, that being the Citizens sign and the Five Guys Dunkin' Donuts sign. And that in all other respects, that the sign be constructed and located consistent with the plans that have been submitted.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good.
We didn't constitute the board, or did
Yeah.
you? Because Andy can't be on.
Yes, the regular board except for Andy and Paula. Oh, Paula's on it.
Paula is on it?
Everybody here.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So everybody voted?
Andy recused himself.
Good.
Okay,
All right.
thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Next petition. Petition 2221 by IG Investments in care of Paul Lynch Esquire, requesting a dimensional special permit and/or dimensional variance for the construction of a two-family home on a vacant lot with insufficient frontage at 0 Lodge Road. All right, Mr. Lynch?
Okay, thank you. For the record, my name is Paul Lynch, representing the petitioner. Mr. Chairman, I think what's happening here is there are two issues. One is the dimensional special permit, then one is the site plan special permit. I'll give you a little history here. The applicant went before the planning board back in September for a site plan special permit to construct a two-family dwelling on this lot in the A4 district, which is allowed in the A4 district. Single and two-family dwellings are allowed. I was not present at that hearing, nor did I represent the applicants at that time. There came an issue before the planning board as to whether this lot was in fact grandfathered. So the planning board felt that it was, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but it was on their pay grade to determine the zoning issues. So they asked for it to be continued or taken over by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that is why we're here. So now we are here for two different issues. One is that now that the planning board has made it has turned it over to the zoning board. The zoning board has control over the site plan special permit for the building itself, and the zoning board also has the jurisdiction now over the dimensional relief. I presented a memo last week with respect to this, but I'd like to give it a little overview because some of the issues may not be as clear. What happened is in June of 1949, a subdivision plan was created, and it was endorsed by the planning board on August 4th of 1949. The town of Swampscott changed the zoning bylaw in 1948, and it was an A3 district at that time, and the lot size was 60 feet, and the 6,000 feet, excuse me, and the frontage was 60 feet. So they created a Lot A, which was less than the required lot area and less than the required frontage, which had a house on it and still does. And they created Lot B, which had the excessive lot area, but less than the required frontage at 52 square feet. Swampscott adopted subdivision control in 1952. So prior to 1952, someone could record a plan, any plan they wanted to do. And that is going to be one of the arguments, I'm sure, that if anyone is in opposition. However, it should be noted that in this particular plan, the planning board signed off on it. So there's a disconnect somewhere in that if the planning board signed off on it, one must assume that there was some relief granted by the zoning board to allow for one lot to have less than the required frontage or less than the required area, and the other lot to have less than the required frontage. Else, why would the planning board sign off? They would have just said, go file your plan. I've spent more time than I care to mention at the town hall researching this and requested documents from the selectman's office who were in control at that time of the zoning board minutes and the selectman's minutes. They have none. I am told by an email from the town clerk that it was apparent that there was a flood some time ago and most of the records were destroyed. So we have no proof, positive or negative, that there was some relief granted, but we must assume that there was some relief granted because when the plan was recorded on September 1st of 1949, Lot A was deeded out at the same time, which had the house on it. And there was a mortgage put on. So I'm sure at that point, someone did their due diligence and realized that it was, at that point, a conforming lot with grants from the planning board and from the zoning board. I believe that there was a zoning board in effect at that time. I know in Marblehead, it was this board of selectmen for up until the 60s. So then, Lot A got conveyed a couple of more times, and with mortgages. Lot B remained vacant for all this period of time, separate and assessed as a building lot for some $200,000 for a number of years, which I provided that information. So now, my clients bought the lot, and prior to that, they did their due diligence. Okay? They had an initial conference with Rich Baldacci at the time, who was the building commissioner. Then I went and had a few meetings with Rich Baldacci and with Bob Ives, who was the assistant building commissioner and is the zoning enforcement officer in Marblehead. He splits his time. We reviewed the plans, we reviewed the deeds, and Rich Baldacci also, and Bob Ives, reviewed the zoning map of the town of Swampscott back in 1948, and it was their opinion that it showed that there were separate lots on Dodge Road. As a result of that, Rich Baldacci issued a verbal to me by email that he would write a letter, and subsequent to that, he did in fact write a letter that, in his opinion, the lot was buildable, and he would issue a building permit for a one- or two-family dwelling, provided it met all the dimensional requirements under the present bylaw, such as setbacks, open area, lot coverage, etc. Okay? As a result of that, my clients purchased the property. Then they went and had plans done, and no need on their part to request a building permit until they went and got a site plan special permit for the structure they wanted to do, which was over 3,000 square feet, which triggered the necessity to have a site plan special permit before the planning board. And so that's where we are today. And that we have to determine whether, A, this lot is in fact grandfathered because of the history, or B, whether the frontage relief is appropriate before we move ahead with respect to the site plan special permit of the structure they propose. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how you want to do this. You want to bifurcate the two separate issues?
I think so, yeah. I think that the issue we have to focus on is whether the lot's buildable or not.
I don't disagree.
Right.
Would it have to go back to planning to get this site plan review?
No,
No.
we can do it here, yeah. So, starting with the letter that's, with Rich Baldacci's letter, it looks like that the map that he was relying on was a later map. That was a map that was the map that shows the separate lots. That's a map, there's the one that's attached in your packet. It has, and the thing is, it has all kinds of dates on the map, even though there is the March 1, 48. I'm not really sure what that signifies, but I think the operative date on this map is the date in the upper left corner of May 14th of 59, when it was approved by the Attorney General.
Yeah, that seems a little bit strange, Mr. Chairman, that, you know, I don't know what intervened, why, were there some other changes to that in
Yeah,
between?
I'm not sure how that works, right, but because the other map, the map that has that has the 1949, there's another map I know that is at the town hall, which has a 1949 date on it, I think, which shows just a couple of big lots on Lodge Road. Doesn't show the separate lots. So I think that's the operative one. So I don't think that it has any protection as a result of having been assessed as a separate parcel as of August the 4th of 48. I don't think it was. I don't think there's evidence that it was assessed separately prior to August 4th of 48.
Regretfully, the assessor's office has no records either, going back that far.
Because the map shows a single lot as of that date. So then it looks like, and then the other thing is that, of course, when whatever approval the planning board gave it in August 5th of 49, as a site plan approval today, that doesn't affect zoning really. It just, the planning board's just saying that the lots have frontage on a way. They're not speaking to zoning at all.
Well, I understand that, but with all due respect, they didn't even need that endorsement from the planning board to record the plan.
So what's peculiar here is that it looks like so in August 5th of 49, when the planning board, creates these two lots, they essentially at that point are creating two non-conforming lots.
Correct.
On August 5th of 49, they create those two lots, even though the zoning, as you provided us with the zoning bylaw for that time,
I did.
which specifically says, you can't do that. On page 9, section 2 there, so it's Article 5, section 2, says, "No lot shall be changed in size or shape, so that the height, area, or yard provisions herein prescribed are no longer satisfied." So the zoning board bylaw itself says you can't do it without a variance. There's no indication of any variance. They just created these two lots, rendering them both non-conforming to the new bylaw.
Well, even.
The lot
no,
with the house on it is protected, I guess,
No,
because
it's
there's a
not.
house on it.
It's not protected at all. It's got the same, if you want to say that
Well,
Lot
just that it
B,
has, it's not, well, one's vacant and one has a house on it. That's the difference, and they're treated differently in the zoning bylaw, in chapter 48.
only if it had 5,000 square feet, no, because it's not, Lot A has the same issues as Lot B, if you're saying that they are not, they were not subdivided correctly. They're both from the same tree. And they bear the same fruit.
Don't we treat undeveloped different than developed, pre-existing?
No, you cannot create a non-conforming lot that has a house on it, and just because it has a house on it, it becomes conforming.
No, it'll still be
It's still
non-conforming, of course.
It's not only non-conforming,
We treat
Conforming.
non-conforming
Yeah.
pre-existing structures different than non-conforming undeveloped.
it's not pre-existing non-conforming. That's the issue. If it was, to your point, Heather,
But wouldn't we be adding to the non-conformity of it by allowing something to go there?
excuse me?
I'm sorry, if we don't treat them differently, if we put something on a property that is non-conforming, the plot is non-conforming, if we put a structure on it, it adds to the non-conformity, and isn't that something we don't do?
I'm not sure what you're,
Okay.
I just don't see how we get around the fact that, you have a vacant lot that was made unbuildable. When they divided the lots, they created an unbuildable lot. That's what they did.
and
They
created,
created two lots, two non-conforming lots, but one was already developed, one had a house on it, the other one does not, is vacant land. And I don't see how you make that, how we get around that. Nothing's changed since then to make it buildable. It was created after there was a zoning change that said you have to have 66,000 square feet and
No,
60 feet of
6,000.
frontage, and then after that was passed, they made the lots non-conforming, and it's vacant. Now, the other one, also, they made it non-conforming and became non-conforming in terms of both area,
frontage.
and I think, I'm not sure if it had the frontage, yeah,
No,
and
it didn't have the
And
frontage.
frontage, but it had a house on it.
Well, that doesn't make it,
And lots with houses on it they have special protection over, they're treated differently than houses that.
well, I'm not here
protecting.
I'm not here to protecting Lot A, first of all. I don't agree, it's not pre-existing non-conforming.
I know, the issue is on Lot B.
So the issue then comes to the point, is it appropriate for relief for the frontage of 8 feet?
These always owned by the same owners?
No, they're only owned by the same owner back in 1949. Since 1949, they've been under separate ownership.
And are they currently under separate ownership?
Yes. They've never been under, I've done the title, and I'll
I
swear
was just
that
thinking if they had if there had been a merger.
there's been no subsequent merger to correct either nonconformity since 1949.
Well, they were held in common ownership when the zoning bylaw was passed. They were in common ownership as of August 4th of 48, when the zoning bylaw was adopted, establishing the 6,000 square feet and 63 feet of frontage. So I think they would have merged then. But then, so I think they would have merged legally, but then after they merged, a year later, for whatever reason, the planning board approved a plan dividing them after they were held in common ownership and after they had merged.
And after the subdivision law went into effect?
No, before the subdivision law went into
Before the
effect.
subdivision
That was
law.
still before.
Yeah, the subdivision law went into effect in
52?
1952
Yeah.
in Swampscott, and this happened in 1949. So therefore, we don't know why the planning board was involved, except there must have been some relief given somewhere.
But we don't have any copies because of the flood.
We don't have any copies because of the flood. And back then, it was very rare that someone would record a special permit back then. You just,
So then what's your best argument as to why, the relief you're seeking should be granted?
my best argument by the relief
Yeah.
should be seeking is that it's been held in separate ownership since 1949. There is no other use for the lot. It is not something that my client created themselves. It's not something that they did haphazardly without doing some due diligence and getting some assurance from the town of town of Swampscott, I'm used to town of Swampscott, from the building commissioner, that it was given, without any caveats. It was just said, I would issue a building permit. Come in tomorrow, I'll issue a building permit. And again, they bought it in good faith. They didn't create the issue, and they have clean hands, basically. And the only thing that we would need relief for at this point is the frontage requirement. Going from, I think it's 52 some odd square feet to 60 square feet, which would make it conforming at this point. And I think may I approach it, Mr.?
Yes, sure.
This will just show you the layout of the area, the one that's circled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, they need to go out of order and make you laugh.
Thank you.
Don't take it personally.
Noise is driving me crazy. I think it's every time I've been show his me.
So what's the specific relief he's looking for? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Down the wizards too.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
So, if we were, let's just for the sake of argument say that we were willing to entertain the relief, which is non-conforming for frontage, how would we be able to grant that relief? We can't give them a special permit, so we have to give them a variance.
Exactly. That's the problem.
What does the variance say? We're giving you a variance because they cut your lot up illegally way back when, and that's your hardship. I mean, even if you wanted to give it, it certainly is challengeable, but I mean, this is not out of character, the lots of this size, et cetera. But it's like, I don't know how you write a variance here, the irregular, it's here because they didn't give you the 10 feet or 8 feet they should have given you back then. I mean,
Well, we don't, well, the problem is, Andy, we don't know whether they gave us the relief back then. Because why would the planning board sign off on the plan?
Wouldn't they have given us a variance for that relief?
They must have.
You can also say, though, the fact it was never built on is indicative that it did not get relief. The fact it was never built on since then, remained vacant.
No, we don't know that. I mean, we can't understand.
We don't know.
We don't know why
whether
it's-
any relief was given either, just a big unknown.
We don't know whether
But
relief-
Andy's right, even if we want to give you the relief, we can't give you a variance.
Well, you can.
We'd have, no, I don't think we could, no.
I mean, that would be so, Paul, that would be so out of character for this board. It does not get variance.
You'd have to really ignore a lot of the criteria
Well,
for
I
a variance.
understand, but we have a situation here where there is hardship, and the hardship is not a result of anything that the petitioner did. It is not self-created by the petitioner, the situation. If it was self-created, we cannot argue a hardship. And without a variance, there's no permitted use of the property, either by the petitioner or by anyone else. And I think that the case law will hold that that is enough to give relief, especially since the desired relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. The lot is the only developed lot in the area and is relative in size to the surrounding developed lots. So I know that this board and other boards are reluctant to grant variances. Well, that's all well and said, but the fact that Chapter 40A allows for, Section 10, allows for the grant of variances, since this board is in charge with deciding what is reasonable with respect to the zoning bylaw, they cannot carte blanchely say, we are never going to give a variance.
But Paul, is the, it's solely the fact that it has insufficient frontage?
Correct.
So the bylaw says that a lot lacking sufficient frontage is not eligible for a variance based solely on the fact that it has insufficient frontage.
Well,
How do we?
I'll tell you how we get around that. Okay? Because it's not just a frontage.
Get around.
If one looks at the bylaw and the case law, in our bylaw, okay, we don't define lot. We define lot area, and we don't define lot area, we define lot frontage, lot width, lot sideline, and the question was whether the building commissioner was correct in his decision. And with respect to the variance, one could grant a variance if the current shape of the lot does not conform to the zoning requirements of the A4 zoning district. And the shape of the lot does not conform to the zoning. It's not the frontage, the shape of the lot does not conform, because if one looks at the lot, the shape of the lot is such that the dimensions do not conform to the current zoning bylaw. So relief can be granted to correct that deficiency in the shape of the lot.
The dimension of the lot in this district, you're saying is, apart from frontage, you're saying that the shape of the lot doesn't conform to the lot requirements in this district?
At the time, the shape of the lot, as a result of the
It's almost a rectangular lot, right? I mean,
but I mean, the shape of the lot, as a result of the frontage and the rear lot line, it's the shape of the lot does not conform. If the lot had 60 feet of frontage, the shape of the lot would conform. So I think we can.
I think that's a creative argument to say that frontage is directly proportional to or
Shape.
related to shape.
Correct.
But we can't excise the word frontage out of our bylaw and just deem it dimension, can we?
Yes, because your bylaw, if I may,
Look at 5.5.2.
I did.
Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Sure, Andy.
Off the skis, it's not really germane to the variance question, but just it's kind of the whole picture here. What's the lot A owner say about the lot B owner building a two-family house here? Because clearly, if the lot A owner doesn't want the lot B owner to build this house, you have a variance that loses in court. because you really don't have hardship. I mean, the only hardship I hear see, you know, we have hardship, we got a bum surveyor, you know, 50, 60 years ago.
Well,
You can make up all the stories, and then the same thing on the right. If neither of those guys want to fight, or the guy across the street, any of wants to fight this, you're totally have no loser.
no,
What's Lot A say? Because I look at Lot A and say, well, what happens if you went, if the B owner went to Lot A and straightened out the, you know, just moved, straightened the lot line out to make his lot conforming, yet his wouldn't be any more non-conforming necessarily than it is. And you know, I don't know, I'm not sure where I'm going, but I just see that if we grant the variance that we don't want to grant because the guy's in a bind, which is no reason for us to grant a variance, and the Lot A guy appeals it, I'd rather not go on record of coming up with a fabricated.
Well, I think, Andy, if I may, with all due respect, I think in that you're missing the point. Because by granting the relief we're seeking for Lot B, it doesn't give us the right to put anything on it except a structure under 3,000 square feet. If a structure wants to, so we're not talking about the grant of the either special permit or variance for the frontage does not give them a right to build a 4,600 duplex. All it gives them the right is to say, we now have a buildable lot, whether it's for a single family of under 3,000 square feet or whatever. That's all it gives them the right to at this point. Then we would have to come back to this board and seek relief for a site plan special permit. So it is two separate issues.
Okay, Paul, I know, okay, I know I'm not the lawyer on the board, and I'm gonna follow my lawyers on the board's opinion, but I wonder if they find any way to grant this variance, if that it's not like a 2-for-1, that, okay, we bail the guy out conceptually, but it's a much restricted building, so everybody on either side, everybody's happy, so.
Well, that's it, yeah, that's right. That's gonna be an issue for another day.
Yeah, but I'm saying that I don't know that I could address the second issue after I legitimized the lot, and then I've lost my right to really control what you might under legal rules and, you know, push me farther than I would want to allow now under the circumstances. But that's more of a business approach than the legal approach.
So I guess what you're saying is,
I defer to, you know, my attorney.
so I guess what you're saying is that if you knew what was going on the lot, you may have a different opinion with respect to the relief we're seeking.
I think I'm so far, Paul, I think I'm holding my nose, but so I'm not saying I'm going to, but, you know, just on the face of it, I would be saying we don't grant variances for this hardship. There really isn't a hardship there, is my feeling, and that's just layman's terms. I'm not a lawyer, so I'll leave it to the other guys. I said my piece, I think.
Well, I think, you know, if in fact, what your bylaw says is that a lot lacking sufficient frontage is not eligible for a variance based solely on the fact that it has insufficient frontage. Okay? It's not solely that it has insufficient frontage. In this situation, it has insufficient frontage coupled with the fact that there is no way to create sufficient frontage. And it is not something that they created themselves, and it's not personal or specific to this applicant. Anybody now is going to have the same issue with this lot. It is, if it's just going to sit there with no use, there certainly is a financial hardship, and usually a variance is okay, there's another way to fix it, go out and fix it. Here, in this particular situation, because the lot is between two developed lots, there is no way to correct the deficiency. So it's just not the frontage, it's the hardship coupled with,
We're not, that financial hardship is not supposed to be in our thought processes. All of a sudden now, it's a piece of land that doesn't appear to be a two-family house, that may not be even a single-family house.
Correct.
And so its value isn't zero, its value is some kind of green space to the lot on the left, the lot on the right, the guy across the street, or who knows, you make less money. Sometimes you make money, sometimes you lose money.
but Section 48, Section 10 deals with financial hardship. So we can't just,
I'm leaving it to my lawyers to go a little farther and help me along here. I'm just
Don't you think they should have done that?
talking practical business, I guess. Probably out of school, out of turn, I might have. But, so, I'll sit down. Yeah.
I don't see how, I'm only one vote, I just do not see how we can grant the relief, even if we want to. And we probably do want to, because it is the lot, the lot, you go down, all the lots are developed, and this empty lot sticks out like a sore thumb. But I
And why
don't
don't
see
you feel you
how, it does not qualify for a variance even under any stretch of the imagination. In fact, as Brad pointed that language out, says that, this really is because it has insufficient frontage. That's the only reason. And, the bylaw tells us that we can't grant relief for that.
Are there, I would be curious to know if there are other people here who, have thoughts on this.
Sure.
To Andy's point, because, sort of understanding
We
where.
can hear, I don't think we get there, but we can certainly, everybody's here though, so why don't we,
Hey,
You ready?
Dan,
yeah, Andy?
it's almost like I'd feel better if I was giving, it's like if the lot B only gave the 542 square feet to the lot A owner, so that he was 6,000 feet, and the lot B owner was 6,000 feet,
Right, I know, yeah.
We've cleaned up some of the missed, we made them, we could at least say that we're doing this because we're making them more conforming, So one's undersized for frontage, one's undersized for frontage and lot area. If we let this guy build and give some land to the other guy, then the other guy now is conforming for lot area, he's only undersized for frontage. It's less before we wrote in. And, I don't know. I don't know.
And those are all, those are all equitable, creative, equitable ideas, but I don't think that.
I think they all have a variance as the jumping off point. Right? They all have a variance as the jumping off point. I'm trying to understand how we can avoid, because I agree, I don't like the idea of an empty lot there. And I also, I'm not 100% comfortable with the fact that what you said, your assumption that at some point there was relief granted for this, didn't happen. And I think it's unfortunate that we don't have that evidence before us. It really is, but.
trust me, we tried to find it.
No, I don't doubt. Knowing you, I'm sure you looked under everything, but we don't have it.
All right, let's hear from some of the,
Hey, Dan, can I make a quick comment?
yeah, sure.
I just want to mention why this came about, and I just want to refer back to the letter that was written.
Yes.
The letter that was written mentions 5,000 square feet, 50 feet, and that wasn't even, that wasn't a requirement back then. So that's what kind of made me take that letter and say, wait a minute, that was never, at that time, we never had 5,000 50-foot frontage in the town of Elmsted, maybe other towns. But I know we keep referring to a letter was written from a former building inspector, but I really think it was written in error, and that's why we're here. And I just want to make that clear to you guys.
Okay, all right, thank you, Steve.
Hey, Dan, I was just gonna say, I feel better if, in other words, if you could circle with A, either A's for it or not for it, and change the lot, even if you diminished A's frontage but gave them 500 square feet of land in return for it, you could eradicate the non-conformity on lot B. And then lot A would be less non-conforming than it was previously because it got up to the 6,000 feet and now only has a deficiency for frontage. And then you wouldn't have to be granting the variance. Did anybody follow that?
I followed it.
I didn't really follow that, Andy.
I followed it, but I don't think we're gonna get that done
What's Andy
tonight.
saying?
He was saying you would borrow square footage, right? There would have to be a conveyance?
I give the, yeah, in other words, B goes to A and says, look, you know, let's make a deal here. I'll give you a bigger lot. You'll give me 8 feet of frontage. And then we will have reduced the non-conformity on A, but A is still non-conforming. But lot B became conforming back then, 6,000 feet and 60 feet of frontage. And therefore, you know, now you can build on it. We've been legal with the variance.
Yeah, it's still non-conforming though, because of the frontage.
No, what, if I may, Brad.
Yeah.
What Andy is saying is, if I may approach?
Yeah, of course.
Andy is saying is, move this line over.
Right.
So then they no longer have, okay,
So they need 500.
Is that you? Is that you?
Much pressure, yeah.
No, no. I'm sorry, the people are confused.
Understandably.
Yeah, hold on.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to make any decisions tonight,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to explain
Yeah.
what Andy said, because it's going to benefit
Yeah, I'm,
A also, okay, but once it's understood. Okay? So what we do is we take that area and give them, required to make that up to 6,000 square feet, and they would give us just a little sliver here, a little pie shape, to give us the 7 odd square feet that we need to meet the 60-foot frontage.
what happens to their frontage?
It shrinks by 8 feet.
Yeah, but what is
It's
it?
already non-conforming.
Well, their
Oh,
frontage
right.
is already non-conforming, and what Andy is saying is
Changing
we're
the-
taking a lot,
Yeah, maybe if they had the frontage to give, but they don't.
well,
But doesn't that
what
route-
Andy's saying is we're creating, correct me if I'm misspeaking, Andy, but what Andy's saying is we're creating we're taking a non-conforming lot with respect to area and conforming it to area, and then we are taking a non-conforming, something that is already doesn't have enough frontage, and reducing that non-conformity. But because of that, we're making the other lot conforming. Is that,
Right.
did I do that okay?
Yeah, except we're missing 1 square foot, so somebody's gonna have to round up.
Yeah.
But
No, but
essentially,
I think I can do the math and figure that out.
Can I ask specifically you a question? Or maybe Brad as well.
I mean, this is a plan that was done,
So when we,
Andy, this was a plan that was done in 1949. We don't know from the survey. We got a survey, we can figure out the
when we talk about
lot area.
non-developed lots in our bylaw, non-conforming undeveloped lots, it says that we have to refer to general bylaw, section 6. And
Section
that's
6.
where they talk a lot about 50 and 5,000.
Right.
And I'm like looking for you guys to interpret how that's applied to this scenario. It talks a lot about the sort of, if it had, you know, the 50 and the 5,000 prior to a certain date.
Were you looking at the first paragraph of paragraph
It's-
6?
It's section 6,
Section
but
6?
it's further down. It's not the first paragraph, but it goes, I mean, it's,
The first paragraph of section 6, of paragraph 6,
I can't
I think.
until it's
Which I
open
know
comment.
deals with vacant land.
but that's, I think, where the 50 and the 5,000
Yeah,
came from,
I think
because it
you're
talks
right.
about, I'm just saying that's where that came
Look
from.
at that, so-
Oh, yeah. Oh, do I have, did you put that in your packet?
No, I didn't put the
Oh, you
bylaw
did?
in.
Okay. I thought I saw that.
This is the general.
a whole set of lots on the Paradise, on the
I
Desert.
think it was paragraph 6, right?
Paradise,
the
they
town
have
of
small lots, 50 and
I
5,000.
think.
We've seen 50 and 5,000 lots before, but they were much older. And it always came to this merger question.
MGL or general bylaw?
Does that answer your question, Aaron?
Yeah,
Yeah,
MGL.
general, I'm trying to find,
What
yeah.
is it? I can pull it up on the big screen.
Okay, so it's
That's right, it's
40A, section 6. Mass general bylaw.
And then do we know where it is in section 6?
It's,
Yeah, it's this one here, right, any increase, this one here, right? Any increase in area, frontage, width, yard, or depth requirements of zoning bylaw shall not apply to a
I
spot
read
in
it
single
in
two family.
Hazel.
Not recording, personal home ownership.
Join the club.
but that's what I was,
But, right, I looked at that today, actually.
and how does?
But it did, it was held in common ownership, though, at the time. That's the thing, it was held in common ownership at the time.
So the division happened after this would be applicable?
Yeah.
Is that? I mean, people
I'm
could
not
divide a lot
sure.
because they didn't want to pay taxes on that portion of the lot they weren't using. I mean, they could have divided a lot for,
But at least 5,000 square feet.
So it was not held in common ownership?
But I know that, Rich Baldacci he was not referenced in that section, though.
he wasn't? I just think that's the
No,
only place
because
where it says 5,050.
Yeah,
And
because
that's
he didn't
why-
mention that, he didn't mention the statute.
So we're looking at
That's
48, section 6.
I think he is
paragraph
referencing
6,
that.
which the case law says applies to vacant land. I was just looking at that today in Bobrowski, at that section. I didn't think that saved him, though.
Well, I mean, it seems like that time has long since lapsed.
Right.
Right? That would have had to been within 5 years of 1976,
Right.
from what I'm reading. They would have had to develop within 5 years of 1976. Is that what that's
This
saying?
is 40A, section 6.
It's just our zoning bylaw doesn't speak to this. It only refers you to this.
To a lot for some. Endorsement. So what was the time of recording or endorsement that we're talking about?
Right, that's a good question.
1949?
Correct.
At the time recording and endorsement.
Was it held at that time in 1949? Was it held in common ownership? Were these lots held in common ownership in 1949?
They were in common ownership then, yeah.
1949, they were held in common ownership until
September 1.
September 1 of 1949.
So when was it recorded?
September 1 of 1949.
So up to that, okay.
It was in common ownership till then, and the,
At the time
they were
of,
in common ownership when the bylaw was passed.
Of course, you also have to remember that Chapter 40A wasn't adopted until 1976. So we have to go back and see what the zoning bylaw was back then, if there was one. Although we know there was one. So,
To Heather's point, isn't there a 5-year,
this is any increase in area, frontage, width, yard, or depth requirement of a zoning ordinance or bylaw shall not apply for a period of 5 years from its effective date, or for 5 years after January 1st, 1976, whichever's later.
so that's the grace period, but you're out of that.
Right.
Increase in area.
Yeah, I think the issue is they're long out of the grace period for such matters.
Yeah. I don't think that helps.
But that's our only, that's the only reference we have to non-conforming undeveloped lot
Right,
in our own bylaw. We don't deal with it at all.
right.
But if you go back to the 1948 bylaw, under section 3, subsection 5, the lot area and lot width regulations shall not apply to lots of less than the required area or width for the district in which they are located, provided such lots have been duly recorded by plan or deed with the registry of deeds or assessed as a separate parcel before the date of the passage of this ordinance. So we have two missing links here. We don't know what the assessments were back then because the town has no records. And we don't know whether there was relief granted by the zoning board of appeals to allow this plan to be endorsed by the planning board.
See, that's the problem, is that
And so I think we have
it's
to,
incumbent on the petitioner to prove that you meet all the requirements, all the elements of the variance.
but you can't, you can't prove that
The
it
fact
goes,
that there's difficulties in proof,
but
you
those
know,
difficult,
that's that's your burden.
well, and we assume that burden, but we can't, we can't create people out of ghosts. And the fact that the records were not there, we did not cause those records not to be there. And
Anyways, let's hear from some of the people who are here. Anyone wish to be heard with respect to this?
You have to,
Well,
You just,
all right, well,
just have to
let's let somebody talk, but, first state your name and your address.
Yeah, William Savino, 20 Lodge Road, Swampscott.
All right. So where are you in relation to this lot, Mr. Savino?
right next door.
that's
Right
all.
next door?
Okay.
Number 20? Okay.
If you put the picture of that lot up, which you had just a minute ago, if you look at that picture, I'm not right there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm right there, and where the house is on the left. Yeah, that's the guy right here, Mr. Brasso. That's his house. I lived at 20 Lodge Road since 1970, and I worked for the town. I was a supervisor for 40 years, and more than once did we have to send a crew down there in that lot to pump out the water into the park, because my house had about 3 feet of water in it in the cellar. Mario's house had 2 or 3 feet of water. He lost his furnace. I lost my hot water and damaged my motor and my furnace. And the water in that lot, I'd say, was at least 2.5 feet. There's no catch basin on Lodge Road to pump it into, so they have to pump it in the park. I had to get a crew down there to do all the pumping and clear it out. And we finally got another drain put into Muriel Road to try to alleviate the problem when it rains hard, and it helped a little bit. But if it rains, the water table down there is, you don't have to get down maybe 3.5 feet, and you're in the water table. And Lodge Road, in the back of his lot and my lot, it goes down 3 feet. Lodge Road is 3 feet higher than the back of his lot and my lot. And the person that owned that lot had a house on Lodge Road. Her name was Adele Ruthman. And I talked to her all the time. I asked her, she was an old woman. I used to help her shovel the snow in the yard. And she told me, she said, Billy, I would never want to do anything with that lot because, and she had nieces and nephews because of the water table in that lot. Now, we're all concerned because we've all got water. And if something goes in there and they dig into the ground, it's gonna change the water table. So we're very concerned about that situation. And not only that, like they've been talking all night, the frontage is very narrow. It's only like 46, 47 feet wide on the sidewalk. And if they want to build what we've seen as a picture, each side of his house would be maybe 7 feet from both sides of Grasso and Semino. And God only knows what it would look like if we had 3 or 4 inches of steady rain. So I can see why the woman never wanted to do anything with it. And when she died, the relative that sold her house, I believe, ended up selling that lot of land to these people down there. Whether they told him she told him anything, I have no idea. But we're not really excited about having anything built in there, to be honest with you. Because I think it's gonna affect him and me when we abut that. And
My
we've
son
got-
was like a swimming pool down my son.
And I live across the street and we got flooded as well.
So that's a problem, that's the lowest area in town. Lodge Road is like Phillips Park, when it rains, it floods. That's the lowest area in town. I buy flood insurance even though I don't have to, because I've got flooded 5 or 6 times, and I didn't have the insurance, but I have it now. And we're very concerned.
All right, thank you, sir.
Big water.
Does anyone else wish to add anything?
Yeah.
Just on the water thing, I'm John Spagnoli from Bates Road. In my basement, the water table, the water is probably 1.5 feet below the slab of the floor all year.
Yeah.
Pumps run all year long on Bates. I'm not saying anything about anywhere else, but it's right.
The area can't handle the water, it's so low. Even though there's 3 or 4 basins on Bates Road, it can't handle it. If there's high tide, the water doesn't run out through the drains, it's blocked by the tide. It's just a bad area, you know?
My name is Rule Longfellow. I abut the property as well. I'm on Muriel Road, 21 Muriel Road, and I'm directly in back of this piece of land. And to talk about what John said and Billy said as far as water, I lost a car, and the only reason I didn't lose my truck is because it was backed in the driveway when we had 3 feet of water, okay? And to, you know, add to what he said, this is a real problem, okay? And the reason Adele didn't sell the land is because it wasn't a buildable. Adele, I'm sorry, is the woman that owned it before on Lodge Road, okay? And I'm not the only one. My next door neighbor also abuts the property. They're not here. I think they're on the Zoom call, but they're...
We don't know what the realtor told these people, you know, because she sold both the house and the lot to them. So I don't know what she told them or what.
Bill, I actually own that house.
Huh?
I actually own the house. She didn't sell it.
What house?
What house?
Adele's house.
Oh.
Well, your Lodge Road?
Adele's house,
That's
right?
number 29.
Okay.
Where was that house? Adele's house?
No, she's the last, I mean, he's the last house.
What number is that?
29.
20,
It's across the street.
21?
29.
29.
29.
The last house.
Oh, yeah, 29. Okay, all right, thank you.
I have one more question, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Regarding the, something they were saying, take some of the lot, mix them.
I think they have them, but I can't.
Too. But
I
how
can't
does
get
that
it to them
increase the
because
frontage?
it
You have to move
But if they need it,
the
I'll make
frontage,
copies.
that line between lot A and B, wouldn't you have to move it to the left by 8 feet to get the frontage?
I don't know the exact number, what we'd have to do is just cut a little pie.
They have this.
Right, but the pie in the front, not in the back.
Right.
So how would they get in their
What about
driveway?
here?
I walked
Do we
up
know?
the driveway.
Yeah, that's her right
is
there. Yeah, she's
on the
absolutely
right
not.
side of
I mean,
that house.
Give me an easement.
To do that,
Right,
not in the middle.
Yeah, it's a silly conversation.
You're just saying like
No, I
that would be
know.
one
I'm
way
just-
to get it done. Obviously,
like that.
I wouldn't
Obviously-
expect the neighbor to do it either, believe me. Since I wasn't, we weren't gonna No one's gonna take that. It was just kind of like a solution to the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we do. I think Attorney Lynch gave us, that's good. That's good that you have that.
I can make copies and give it to you
I'd like to have that anyway. You know? Yeah, we'd probably like to have it, you know, because not that we always need it, but it's good to have the old bylaw. You never know.
I'll bring it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Dan, I have a hand raised from Bill Demento over.
Sure, okay, thank you.
Mr. Bill Demento is raising his hand on Zoom.
Mr. Demento?
Yep, let me
Oh,
just.
sure.
Good evening, folks. Bill Demento.
Good evening, Mr. Demento. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I'm that guy that's the friend of Rue Longfellow that helped him write the opposition to this variance with you. And I look at this and I just reread this opposition Rue filed with you, and I'm profoundly disappointed in Rich Baldacci for being able to see two lots that didn't exist from a 1948 map, because he couldn't have seen them because they didn't exist until 1949. So there's no way on earth they could be there. And everything that Andy and the rest of you have said, in my view, is absolutely correct. And my friend Paul Lynch is given an impossible task to try to rectify this situation with this lot, because it is absolutely an illegal lot. The difference is, he's not asking you for a couple of feet. You have to give a variance if you give it from the existing bylaw. You don't give variances from a 1948 bylaw. This is now 80 feet.
That's the 80.
And 10,000 square foot. That's the size of the variance that you'd be giving if you gave it. One thing is for sure, in a neighborhood of 2,000, 2,400 square foot houses, it's absolutely irresponsible to come in with a 5,000 foot, 37 foot high structure on this lot, thinking because two family are allowed in the use. If you have a variance, the zoning board has the absolute right to put conditions on that variance saying what the use can be and what the dimensions can be. It seems to me this is a petition. This is not something to determine the buildability of a lot. That's not even before you. They didn't even file under that. They filed for a variance. This needs, in my opinion, for the developer to withdraw it, meet with the neighbors and find out if there's any common ground before you can do anything. Before you can do anything, because there's certainly, as Andy said, there's absolutely no hardship as contemplated under the four conditions of hardship by Chapter 48, Section 10. There are no provisions under the statute or under the local bylaw that reach back once the law has been broken. And that was broken on March 23rd, the day of passage of the zoning bylaw, in which there was no subdivision. They missed it by 14 or 15 months. And what it was done, it was done. There's one other thing from a few years that I spent in that town. This myth of every record that anyone's ever looking for being lost in the flood is a myth. Most of the stuff for zoning bylaws was held in the building inspector clerk's office, then shipped to the building inspector's office, and then shipped downstairs in the town hall, where there's still a lot of things. But we can't use that business about the flood. The flood costs everything. Any file that anyone's ever looking for that they can't find, the flood destroyed it. And there was a flood in that sewage treatment plant, but there's no indication whatsoever that zoning files were a part of it. They were mostly selectmen and Department of Public Works files. But the point being, you're in an absolute corner. The only way out of it, as I see it, is variance, but you're never gonna get around the fact that Rule Longfellow and Mercedes Longfellow are never gonna tolerate a 5,000 square foot monstrosity behind them that's gonna dump all that water on them. They're just not gonna do it, and they shouldn't have to go to court to fight a made-up variance because a guy has lost money. That just doesn't work out under the law. And I think the zoning board just has to bite the bullet and fight the law. If the developer wants to go to the decision, go to it. It's his decision. He can always withdraw and come back and try to find another way around it. Maybe they'll find that variance, which doesn't exist. This isn't the first time we've seen the planning board do plans. It happens all the time in Swampscott. So that's just the way it is. But certainly, if it goes to a vote, it's got to go to a vote. That's what the developer wants. I think you just got to get to it. Thank you for the time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Demento. Do we have any other hands raised, Marissa?
I do have a couple, yes. Michael Walsh.
Hi, this is Michael Walsh from 9 Muriel Road. I share my neighbor's concerns about the flooding and about the scope of the proposed structure. But just in terms of listening to it here tonight and hearing the idea that, it wasn't these guys' fault, that they bought something and they thought to be able to build on it. But practically to me that sounds like it's a failure of diligence, which is, it's unfortunate. But it's not necessarily something where you would look to the zoning board for relief from that. Whoever failed to catch it, it wasn't buildable in the first place, is sort of the responsibility here for any financial loss they're having. That's all I have. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else? You may use the raise your hand function on Zoom.
Is that it?
Okay.
Okay.
So I know that they missed that they were less than a year late with doing the subdivision after the zoning changed.
Right.
Does this section 6 provide them a 5-year grace period from when that zoning law changes to when they were forced to record the separate lot? Is that why they would be able to record that separate lot?
I don't know. He has not
After
made
the-
that argument. He has not built his argument on that section at all. It's incumbent upon him. I don't know. It's complicated. That gets complicated, I
But
don't
think-
know. I didn't do an
I
analysis
do
into
think-
that.
I do think that's what he was referring to. It's the only place, we don't have to say 5,050 anywhere, the only place they say it.
Yeah.
Yep. And he would have just made those numbers up. Rich.
Yeah, I don't know where he came up with that. Could have been referring to that, but I don't know. An obscure section of 48 too. They don't deal with that very often. And he doesn't reference it.
Mr. Chairman.
Do you have anything you want to add,
Yeah,
Mr. Lynch, before we
I
close the
forgot-
public hearing?
Yeah, I've heard from everybody, and I've heard from some of the ideas that Andy has, and I have some knowledge of the variance and issues that I think I can maybe overcome, maybe not, but I think I can overcome some of those reluctance on the part of the board. And with respect to the neighbors, I'm more than happy to sit down with them and see if we can't come to some common ground here. It is nothing that's going to be solved in a month, so to ask for a continuance, it'll be just be kicking kicking it down the road and kicking it down the road. So I think at this point, we'd ask to withdraw without prejudice, try and regroup, and when it's appropriate, to come back.
Okay, all right, I think that makes sense. Okay, so, I'll make a motion that the board approve the petitioner's request to withdraw the petition without prejudice.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lynch, for your presentation.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, folks, for coming in and being so patient.
Just a motion to adjourn, Dan, just to officially close. I think that's it, right?
Yeah. All right. Oh, yes.
Just a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Just wait a second.
All right, good job, everyone.
They want some explanation.